Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. We're going to start things off with the Stab Grot and the Killaboss with a little bit of basing. We're going to do a pretty decent layer of super glue on the base and then just coat it with a mixed grit sand. On any of the areas that the sand doesn't quite fully cover the base, we're just going to apply a second layer of super glue and quickly just apply another layer of sand. The super glue absorbs into the sand very fast, so if you have to do this, you're going to want to do it in sections. Now, since the Killaboss has a stylized base that came with him, we're only going to do sand around the rim and not on any of the raised stylization. Alright, we're going to start things off with the Stab Grot, going with a Creed camo over any of the leather sections as well as any of the areas where there's exposed skin. Then we're going to follow it up with some Basilicanum Gray. This is going to go over any of the metal bits of the armor as well as the weapon. Now that the Creed camo has had a chance to dry, we're going to do any of the remaining leather bits and coat the tunic with the snakebite leather as well. This gives it a kind of nice muddy brown cloth texture. And now we're going to use Agros Dunes on all of the sand to give it a nice murky swamp look. And now we're going to use some Balthazar Gold to do some touches around the model, just kind of highlighting any details. And now we're going to give him a wash of Null Oil, and this is going to go over all of the armored bits. And now we're going to move on to the Killaboss. We're going to start with some orc flesh on all of the exposed skin. Now we're going to use Teleran Sand, and this is going to go on any of the dirt sections of the stylized base. Once we apply a wash, this will help blend this basing section with the mixed grit sand that we've glued on. And while we're at it, we can also paint these little cattails. now we're going to do some Creed camo on all of the kind of cloth hanging off of him. Now we're going to use some Basilicanum Gray to hit up all of his little armored sections. We don't actually have a whole lot of armor, but we do have enough to kind of let it stand out on its own. Now we are going to ignore the center plate on his back, but we are going to paint the metal sections of the weapons. That center metal plate is going to get a different color later. Alright, so we're going to use Levidian Blue, and this is going to go on that center plate. Why blue? Well, because he's an orc, and orcs think blue is lucky. So he's now the lucky boss. We're going to use a little bit of gray sear here to touch up some of the spillover areas, just to prevent any kind of bad color mix-ups. Now we're going to use Griff Charger Gray. This is going to go on the Stormcast model that he's standing on. So we're going to go a kind of medium coat with this. We want it to coat the armor but not be super heavy. Alternatively, you can go a light coat, and then by the time you've finished coating the whole model, it should be dry enough to apply a second very light coat. The key is you don't want the coloration to pool onto the sand, you just want it on the Stormcast. So now we're going to use Snakebite Leather. We're going to coat all the leather bits and all the cloth sections. This will give him that kind of murky swamp bog look that we're going for with these orcs. So now we're going to use Null Oil on the Teleran Sand on the stylization. This will help to continue blending the two different colors together. So as you can see, it's already starting to look a little bit more like the mixed sand that we've glued on. So now we're going to use some Black Templar. Now this is not going to go on the whole Stormcast model, just a couple of areas to kind of give multicolored definition to the basing. And now we're going to use some Wildwood, and that's going to go on the handles for both the weapons. And now, using some Retributor armor, we're going to paint some of the detail areas around the model, focusing on some of the harder to reach places. Always remember, a little detail goes a long way on models like this, just to kind of draw your eye to different areas. So now we're going to use some Balthazar gold, and this is going to go on some of the spiky bits, mostly on the helmet. So now we're going to use Agros Dunes to kind of blend all the basing sand together with the Talaran sand and the previous wash. And now some camo shade. Now this is going to go on all of the leathery bits and all of the skin tones. Now, as we've done with other models, we want to avoid getting this onto the armored sections. Now we're going to use some null oil on the armored sections and the weapons. Now we can also do the Stormcast model on the base, and this will give some nice shadow definition. And finally follow it up with some Agrax Earthshade, and this is going to go on the cattails, and we're also going to do a very light touch on the blue section. And here we are with the finished piece. Alright everyone, thank you very much. Please hit that like button, subscribe for future content, and comment in the comment section, and we will see you in the next one.